We're here at day two of Capital Ideas 2026. I'm Merritt Rolfing here with Nick Anderson of Roanoke Insurance Group. Nick, how are you enjoying the show so far?
So, Merritt, thanks a lot for having me.
Of course.
This is my, I think, 17th TIA, Capital Ideas
A
Conference.
record holder.
And I've definitely seen it change over the last 17 years. I'm having a great time here. We have a lot of customers here. We get a lot of work done, get to meet a lot of new vendors.
So, what do you look forward to every year? I'm curious about this. And was there anything in particular about this year that you were especially excited to see or hear or do?
Yeah, so this year, I think being an insurance company,
Hmm.
we are real focused on risk and helping our clients mitigate risk, dealing with cargo claims. And, this year and last year and last couple of years, cargo theft, strategic theft, identity theft, fictitious pickup, that has been kind of the number one topic on our clients' minds. So we come here, we meet attorneys, we meet our customers, we find out what the trends are, what the good compliance products are, and I always love coming here.
So, I hesitate to say favorite topic, but it's most important topic probably going in the industry right now is that, as you mentioned, cargo theft and both straight, strategic, and all these different versions of it. I'd love to talk about it with you. So, give me a sense of, I guess, where we are with that right now. What is happening? Tell me about kind of the trends you've seen, the shifts in cargo theft over the last several years. Many have been saying it has changed in the last several years.
Sure, sure. So, like you said, theft used to be straight theft. A guy would park his truck,
Mhm.
it would get stolen. Somebody would break into a truck at a warehouse or a yard and steal freight. And I think with the increase in technology, that has actually changed. And now it's becoming more strategic theft, meaning that there is fraud and deception involved. Carriers are getting their emails and their phone numbers hacked. So the freight brokers and the shippers are not actually working with the motor carriers that they think they are. They're working with bad actors. And so I think the increase in technology has really directly led to the increase in the amount of strategic theft that's out there now.
I'm curious, you've been doing this for a long time. Do you think there's any, I mean, I don't want to just say, is it AI's fault? Because it's the big new thing going on within the world of technology these days. But in the last several years, do you think there's any inflection point or specific, I guess, just not cause, but thing that caused this change to it being more technologically driven? Because we've had, the internet and technology and
Hmm.
hacking and all this stuff for 35, 40 years, whatever it might be. But I'd love to get your take on what's happening, I guess. Like, why?
Yeah, I do. I think there's something to that. Like the less that people are actually involved in these transactions, and the more you're relying on automation, that there is a component of risk there, right? Without the human element. So I think it's really important to balance technology with good practices, still having people involved for our clients to be able to mitigate.
Can you talk about good technologies that people should be employing that they maybe aren't right now? Like, obviously, you want risk mitigation, brokers want risk mitigation. What are they missing within their tech stack, perhaps, that you've seen successful brokers take advantage of?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, from an underwriting standpoint, we require all of our customers to have a good compliance product in place. So, products like RMIS and Highway and My Carrier Portal, that's all they do. They're able to look at thousands of carriers on a minute by minute basis, making sure that the broker is actually working with who they think they are working with. They can look at changes to contact information. They can look at insurance levels, safety record, authority status, just to give the brokers some peace of mind that, hey, this is an actual good carrier. So we always recommend that they have those in place. We also require our clients to have a strong broker carrier agreement, a good broker shipper agreement in place to kind of limit their liability. And a lot of our customers have this in place already, but there are a lot of newer brokers that really kind of need to learn these things as they're starting to compete.
And on the other side of that, too, you mentioned obviously best practices, having the right broker care agreements and things of that nature. What are some things that you see as vital, I suppose, that a broker should be having within their workflows, within their processes, within their company? When you're onboarding someone, these are the steps you must take. Tell me about what you see and what you people should be seeing, I suppose.
Yeah, so you always want to make sure that you take the extra time to have a good agreement in place. There is you're constantly balanced. You're trying to move freight. You're trying to make money. That takes time. You're trying to onboard a carrier quickly so you don't lose the opportunity for the load. You don't lose the customer. So you have to be mindful of that. It is going to take a little bit of time to properly onboard a motor carrier. We talked about broker carrier agreement, broker shipper agreement, waiting until you get that thumbs up from either your internal compliance department or if you're using a service, really, really key. You also want to use some common sense, right? If you're talking to a motor carrier and they agree to a rate right away, right? Okay, that might be problematic.
I'd love to talk a bit about, just in general within the 3PL industry is discussions around sort of relationships with carriers, right? They can be at times fraught for obvious reasons, but it's also so vital in something I think, and I've heard other people talk about this with cargo theft, is making sure your relationships are strong with these carriers. So can you speak a bit to how you've seen your clients who are successful in mitigating that risk, kind of building those stronger relationships with carriers, whether it's onboarding and then building it out throughout the years?
Yeah, you bet. So a real key element is have a good core carrier base, carriers that you work with a lot. You know the owner. You've been to their yard. You've seen their vehicles. Maybe they come to your holiday party, right? The more you have a good relationship with your carrier base and you're not going outside using a spot carrier for a load that you are trying to cover on a Friday afternoon and you can't find anybody else, that's where you're going to get into trouble, right? So having a good foundation, having a good carrier base, your core carriers is really key. That was a good point.
So on that side, though, obviously it's good to have a core carrier base, but you got to onboard a new one sometimes.
Yep.
Do you have any tips for, especially for newer brokers who are worried, I suppose, about bringing on those new carriers because they hear all these horror stories of that guy wasn't real, that sort of a thing? Any just quick tips you might have to build into those best practices around how to onboard a carrier in a smart way?
Yeah. So you always want to have a good compliance process in place. You want to have an 8 or a 10-step program of here's all the things that we're going to do to onboard a carrier correctly. Never vary from it. Try to stay away from exceptions. Even if you have the attraction of getting this load move and making a good commission, you still want to make sure you follow every step, because when you start skipping steps, that's when you're going to get into trouble. And so I think a lot of it has to do with training, having good policies in effect that people are sticking with all the time. And you also want to make sure that you are talking to your insurance broker and make sure that you have a good program in place to protect you in the event you do make a mistake or you do end up dealing with some theft or fraud.
So it's widely understood and agreed upon that brokerage is a very fast-paced thing. You need to keep things moving, right? You need to keep loads moving. But that speed versus the safety, they're kind of diametrically opposed. What would you say to a broker who's like, I don't have time for these things? What would you say to somebody who's
I would say, well, you're not going to have time for a $300,000 cargo loss. Right. So and your boss is not going to want you to take a shortcut and put the entire company at risk. I mean, a smaller broker just getting started, if you are dealing with a big claim, then you not only have the risk of this big claim being paid out, but it's also reputational damage for your company, especially if you're a new broker. So you really should never be taking any shortcuts, as tempting as it might be.
Just switching gears a little bit, a nice little pun, but switching gears a little bit. Yesterday, Lynn Gravely, our incoming chairman, was talking about, during his keynote, a little bit about his experience with cargo theft and freight fraud, and about the first thing he ever saw stolen from his company was a bunch of copper, right? And so I want to ask you about, what are you seeing as far as trends of what's being taken? What is being targeted? Is it still your traditional things? Is it still the big high-value things like a load of copper, or what are you guys seeing as far as the targeted items?
Yeah, copper is still a highly volatile item, right? Big target for thieves. Thieves are really looking for things that they can move quickly, right? So we're talking food products, electronics, server racks, copper, different types of metal, right? These are things that thieves are typically targeting. And you'll see that if you look at an insurance policy, you'll usually see what are all the exclusions on here of things that we're not going to cover. Those are the things that are most at risk.
Would there be anything surprising? Some out there watching this who are like, they're really stealing that? Like, what are some things you've seen? You don't have to reveal what it was, but I'm just kind of curious. I gotta know. I'm sure these things come across your desk.
Yeah, I had a situation years and years ago where a guy who was hauling chicken bones had his trailer stolen. Okay, it was on its way to a dog food plant. I don't think there was any resale value to that at all, but they ended up taking it. I'm sure when they opened the truck, they were like, what exactly did we take? So, I mean, but today's thieves are much, much smarter, right? They are doing research. They can see posted loads. They can hear through their connections, especially if there's somebody on the inside. So a lot of this is not random. I mean, they are specifically targeting certain loads based upon the actual commodity that they know that's in that truck.
Are there? You mentioned the things that are still kind of high value, things you can move quickly. Is there anything really trending upwards? I know you were mentioning earlier, foodstuffs, things of that nature. Is there anything you've seen that's just like, surprising, but also it makes sense to you, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I don't think anything beyond what I just mentioned. I
Okay.
mean, server racks is a big thing,
That
electronics, just
yeah.
products that can actually be moved and that are valuable.
Okay, cool. Let's talk a bit more about preparation. Obviously, having a good insurer with you that can always help. But how can a broker really prepare? Like, what can they be looking out for? What are some kind of red flags that they might be noting that they just aren't even thinking about, like beyond what we were talking about before?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really want to create your compliance program from the ground up. Okay, so you want to have a good process in place. You want to have good software in place. You want to have good training so people know what to look out for. You got to use common sense. Like I mentioned, if a carrier agrees to a rate right away, that could be problematic, right? If there's no back and forth, right? Why are they so quick to accept it? Also, it's really important for brokers to talk to their insurance provider and find out what are we covered for. It's important for brokers also to look out for what shippers are putting into their agreements, because that is a big pitfall where shippers are trying to transfer all the risk onto the broker, treat them like a carrier. So you really have to be reviewing those documents as well.
I mean, relations with obviously with the shippers is vital to
Mhm.
a broker staying open. What is that conversation like when all of a sudden you see something new pop up with an agreement, or I don't know, just tell me about from your experience that kind of shipper broker agreement, and what people should be looking out for.
Yeah, so you really need to be looking out for if a shipper is putting you under a contract, you don't want to rush and sign the agreement because you're thinking, hey, this is a great opportunity to move a lot of freight, right? Want to make sure that your in-house counsel and your insurance provider can review that agreement to make sure you're not agreeing to anything that you should not be agreeing to. A lot of shippers, what they're trying to do is treat a broker like a carrier, putting all the liability back on the broker. Regardless of what the carrier does, Mr. Broker, you're going to be responsible for any sort of cargo loss. You're going to have to indemnify us, even if it's our fault. And these are all things that a broker should not be doing. So one of the things that we talk to our customers about is that anytime you have a new agreement from a shipper, get it to us. Let us take a look. Also, your in-house counsel, but let us take a look, review from an insurance standpoint what you're actually agreeing to before you sign it. Don't be afraid to redline something and send it back, right? It's okay to have a little bit of back and forth. Don't get tempted by the value of the account, right? We're willing to take on the risk, and even because it's such a good opportunity, you still need to be looking at trying to protect yourself.
It sounds like honestly, the end of the day, it's really more about patience, and it's really about being careful, and
Yeah.
which again, as I was saying before, kind of flies in the face of what many brokers think the industry is like. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, patience, common sense, right? If something smells a little bit bad, it probably is. So you just gotta you gotta be alert.
So, what do you see coming down the pike as far as like how I don't know what's coming down, how people are going to continue to try and steal, steal loads, or even how we can continue to fight? What's the future look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think with AI and technology, the bad guys are going to be, they're always trying to stay half a step ahead of the good guys, right? They're looking at ways that they can, water's always going to find a crack, right? And because strategic theft, we're not talking about an actual guy showing up and unlocking a truck and moving it. These things are happening sometimes overseas through technology. They're trying to get access to a load. They're trying to hack an email. You're not able to actually see these people and go get them. The FBI is overloaded with work right now, so it doesn't get as much attention as it probably should. I see cargo theft still being a problem in years ahead, and so brokers always have to be vigilant.
You mentioned AI. I have to ask a question. Just kind of popped in my head, but how could, in your view, a broker potentially leverage AI as a weapon against this? Have you seen anyone do anything? Is this something you've thought about? Just idly? I'm just kind of anything on the mind?
Yeah, I definitely don't know all the trends. That's kind of why I'm here at the show. But I think all the big compliance software like your RMIS and your Highway and your My Carrier portal, I'm sure they have AI involved to assist on this, and that's part of the reason I'm going to jump back in there and take a peek.
Excellent. Well, let's get back to it. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up here?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Nick, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Nick Anderson, Roanoke Insurance Group. Appreciate the time. We'll spend a little more time here to Capital Ideas 2026.
All right. Thanks, Merritt.
That's us, man.
Yep.
Cool.